This is the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.
They fought for us, now he'll fight for you. The pursuit of justice and liberty. It's the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.
And now, Bob Cordaro.
Great good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. My name is Bob Cordaro, and this is the Bob Cordaro Show on TV. I'm a native son of this region, born, raised, and returned. As many of you know, I do radio 5 days a week on WILK. Appointment radio, we call it, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on that station. And now we do this thing, the Bob Cordaro Show on TV. Each week, 11:30 a.m. on WNEP-TV 16. Well, I love it here. This is home, and I love the people. From living in big cities around the country, I learned to appreciate that this is the best place on the planet. And I feel the need for us to let each other know how great it is here. We need to believe it. I've been around you and know you all my life. You're great workers, innovators, business people. You're the best of mothers, fathers, friends, neighbors, and human beings. You are the greatest patriots, soldiers, citizens, and Americans. You are America. Now, this won't be like the radio show I do every day, however. On WILK, we do a lot of politics, a lot of criticism, and a lot of opinions. For this TV show, we want to accentuate the positive, to feature those who have achieved and have, or want, connections to this region. So it's a whole different ballgame. The Bob Cordaro Show on TV. Today, you're going to meet a dear friend of mine, a guy who, for me, fits the old saying, a brother from another mother. In my 9.5 years of incarceration, I met some awful and some amazing people. And given the conditions, I got to know a lot of people in both of these categories well. One that particularly came to be part of my life was my friend Teddy Atkinson. This man, who was originally sentenced to life in prison as a kingpin drug dealer in upstate New York, comes to us via Queens, New York, where he lives today. I met him, and we became close friends at Fort Dix Federal Prison. Now, getting to know him was a rare pleasure, as I got to understand his remarkable life with a great but dangerous rise, a terrible fall, including the aforementioned life sentence. And in the feds, a life sentence is just that, culminating after 22 years down, as we say, followed by the most interesting story of redemption, determination, and discipline, which makes Teddy Atkinson a deep and dear friend to many. He's now one of the top personal trainers in New York City, and he is our Power Brunch Player of the Week. But first, in our health segment, Dr. Bryan Frantz is going to help us answer the question, is there clarity on the COVID crisis? Where are we? Looking forward to this show. So with the help of God, our families, and each other, let us begin.
Dr. Bryan Frantz is an internationally recognized periodontist. He heads a multi-specialty dental practice in Dunmore and has consulted, lectured, and taught around the world in his chosen field.
We're here with Dr. Bryan Frantz, and the subject's COVID. Bryan, aren't we done with that? Talk to me about it. Tell us what's the state of play?
Unfortunately, no, Bob, we're not done with it. As you're probably aware, recently there's been a pretty good uptick in the number of cases, especially in the northeast part of the country. And those upticks in cases have been noticed here in northeastern Pennsylvania as well. The reason for the uptick in cases is we now have a subvariant XBB1.5. And what's unique about that covariant is it's contagious, it's highly contagious. And it basically is contagious because it has the ability to dodge the body's immune system. What's also important to know about the covariant is that it doesn't carry with it any more severe form of the disease of COVID-19. It just simply is more contagious and gets into the body easier, tricks the immune system.
Yeah.
What I'd like the viewers to know is what are some of the signs and symptoms? Okay, we all know COVID, you have a runny nose, sore throat, diarrhea, fatigue, sometimes some respiratory issues that get sinus infections, etc. So those are the things to look for and to take very seriously. If you notice those symptoms, what you want to do is get tested. It's extremely important to get tested to find out whether or not you actually have COVID. Interestingly enough, in my own practice, we have seen a number of cases that have oral side effects from COVID. And this is something that is now coming, that we're seeing in the dental literature across the country. Ulcerations, viral lesions, viral outbreaks such as herpes, etc., periodontal problems, gum problems, etc., loss of taste, for example. And so the side effects, along oral side effects with the medical problems that you can get post-COVID are substantial. So
based on where we are,
right.
what are physicians telling people to do? Sure. What should they do? I mean, we got to go back to common sense.
Yep.
And caution.
So what we want to do here, exactly, what we want to do, Bob, is we want to be responsible to our family, our friends, and other individuals in the community. And what that means is we want to make sure we have our primary vaccinations, okay? Very important. And I would encourage the viewers to get vaccinated. In fact, even if just from a financial standpoint, it looks like the government's no longer going to be paying for that. So take advantage of it. Get your primary vaccinations. As far as boosters are concerned, talk to your physician. Talk to your physician on an individual basis and see whether or not they advise a booster. Wear a mask if you're in a crowd. I know it's not, everybody wants to be done with it. I get it. But we're responsible to our family, friends, and other individuals in the community who are sick, okay? The biggest thing is get tested. If you have symptoms, get tested and follow the protocols so that we can mitigate the spread of the disease. So
protect the people at risk.
Protect the people at risk. And so, are we done with it? No. Are there things that we can do to mitigate the spread and live with it? Yes. And again, I would highly recommend visiting the physician with any symptoms, getting tested, and making sure your oral health is perfect, because the airway, the oral cavity, is one of the main ways that we can actually contract COVID.
Appreciate it, Bryan Frantz. Dr. Bryan Frantz, thank you.
You're welcome, Bob.
And now, the Sunday Brunch Power Player of the Week on the Bob Cordaro Show.
So Teddy Atkinson, my friend Shah.
Wow.
Let's talk briefly about where you started. Where were you born and where'd you grow up?
Well, Bob, I was born and raised in Queens, Jamaica area, and went to school, all forms of school throughout that area, and just did all my childhood in that area.
Yeah. Family relatively intact, all around, living in the neighborhood?
Yeah, all around, different parts, but the household intact.
Yeah. What was the mix of the neighborhood at that time?
At that time, I want to say it was basically African-American mixed with a little bit of Latinas, and a smidgen of whites.
Near Jamaica, Queens.
Yeah.
So at some point, you finish your primary education and you get into the drug game.
Right.
Tell me about how that started, and then take us to when you became a kingpin.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
But seriously, it all started with being in an area where you started seeing nice things, right? And just because you see nice things doesn't mean that you can have them at that moment. So you got to work for them. Some people get a little straight off the path of doing the hard work, and some people see an easier route. An easier route is because it's something that's placed in your face every single day.
So what age did you start really seeing this in?
I want to say approximately, I'll say 19 years old.
Okay.
I'll say about 19. And anything before that was just, I don't know what I was doing, right? So as time went on, I started being exposed to more major levels of narcotics. And that's when out of town came on the radar, so to speak. When I say out of town, people used to say, oh, I'm going OT. So that was like an acronym for going out of town.
Yeah.
And out of town always had more money than your immediate area.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you just take a $5 bottle of crack or a $5 bottle of cocaine, and you took that OT out of town, you may get $50 for it, $45 for it. So some people were willing to actually take that risk.
What level? You're developing your connect,
Right.
meaning where you get it from.
Correct.
And this is going on as you're 19, 20.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've got connections to go somewhere else, OT,
Right.
on your own.
Correct.
And that area is Binghamton, New York.
That's Binghamton, New York.
Living in Queens still, but setting up an organization in
In
Binghamton.
Binghamton. Now, going to Binghamton, my initial engagement was with a childhood friend. And that childhood friend initially, so to speak, discovered Binghamton and was like, hey, guess what? Found a new little gold mine. Me, being loyal to my childhood friend, well, what do you got?
Yeah.
Next thing you know, he puts the cards on the tables. It looked so beautiful. It looked so beautiful. When I say it looked beautiful, it was an illusion.
Yeah.
And the illusion was, wow, I can do a little bit more better in another area if I pack my bags and go with this guy.
Yeah.
And there we have it. So I left with him.
And you develop a major connect.
Correct.
And so you could get anything you need, unlimited supplies.
Yep.
And now you've set up shop in the Binghamton area, and you guys are you're it.
We're the guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once we got there, it was like, if you're familiar with Mayberry, the town of Mayberry, with Andy Griffith, I'm dating myself.
Yeah.
There were like maybe approximately 4 to 6 detectives, maybe about 12 to 14 patrolmen. For someone who's going to break the law, that's a paradise. Why is it a paradise? Because there's not enough law enforcement to cover the things that we want to get involved with.
Yeah.
And it just became like cotton candy, man.
Now, what was the size of the African American community in Binghamton at the time? I mean, you had to stand out, accents, the whole bit.
Right.
So you arrive.
Great question.
You're there.
Yep.
People are noticing you. In fact, they have to notice you for you to make money.
Correct. Now, there's an African American population already there. You know, some guys born and raised there. That was their town. At that time, I think the population of Binghamton, New York was approximately, I'm guessing again, because the numbers go up and down, I think it was about 565,000 at that time.
Well, that region.
That whole region,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But the town where we landed, the downtown area, was basically a lot of blacks and whites mixed in. I couldn't put a number on that, but just the movements, when I say the movements, the way that we moved, you stuck out.
Yeah.
Because you may have dressed different, you sound different, you talk different, you walk different. And it was like, okay, who's the new guys? And that brought about like a little curiosity.
But it hit quickly.
Very quickly.
And this is about what year?
I want to say the initial landing was about 89, 90-ish. Yeah.
And so this grows big.
Yep.
This is profitable.
Yep.
You guys start investing in real estate and bars and that kind of thing.
Right.
Tell me about how that goes. I mean, you're in ribbon cuttings.
Right.
In the paper. I saw one.
Right. Now, there comes a time when you can't just stand on corners anymore. You need to be established. And in order to be established, you need to meet more people that's a little bit above your average resident. So you need some realtors, you need some lawyers, you need people that can actually make things happen as far as contracts go and backyard deals. So once that happened, it just started unfolding like you wouldn't believe. If I was to just go bit by bit and tell you exactly how it would sound like, that's imagined. You got to be imagining things. That could not have happened in upstate New York. And it was just so plentiful. It was like, it was a dream.
You mentioned to me at one time that there was a point at which you could have taken your winnings off the table and been done essentially for life.
Yes.
And this is how many years after you get there, roughly?
Roughly 3 years later.
So 3 years later, you could
walk
take
away.
your chips off the table, walk
Walk away.
You don't.
I don't. You know why? Because I was so damn greedy.
Yeah.
I was greedy. And once you have something that nothing's going wrong, No one's arrested. I mean, lightweight arrested, but nothing major. No investigations, no FBI, no ATF, no any of the agencies on you.
Yeah.
Why stop?
Yeah.
You have created a lifestyle now that's going to basically command a certain amount of income coming in.
Yeah.
If that income stops, your lifestyle stops.
And you're still Queens.
I'm still
Binghamton.
Queens. I'm still Binghamton, bouncing around. And
Which would make you harder to detect because you're not always on the scene.
correct. But now, just because you're not on the scene, your name is still on the scene. Who runs that? Who's over there? Whose guys are that? Whose product is that? And that keeps basically the reputation going.
Yeah.
Whether you're there or not. So
you come above radar,
yes,
and now it's the feds.
totally.
And they get a rat in your organization,
As always.
and you got to go to trial.
Yeah.
Conspiracy, kingpin statute.
Continuing criminal enterprise.
All right, tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so the statute with the continuing criminal enterprise is basically known as the 848.
Mm-hmm.
And 848 is basically given to guys who they say have the knowledge to make things happen without actually putting your hands into it.
Mm-hmm.
The federal government doesn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can make things move from one point to another point without you actually physically doing it yourself. We got to get rid of you.
Yeah.
We got to get rid of you because that's a threat.
This is the guy moving. This is the guy moving the chess pieces.
Yeah, he's moving the chess.
So, okay, Teddy Atkinson, he's up in Binghamton. Things are flying.
Yep.
You're at a walk-away point, at least financially.
Correct.
They grab you. The rat gets himself in trouble.
Yep.
He uses you to get out of trouble. And now it was a massive conspiracy that they put together, they invented.
Yeah, yeah.
How many co-defendants did you have?
41 altogether.
41 co-defendants.
Yeah.
How many were you tried with?
5.
So you go to trial. Did you think you had a shot?
Yes, because I was still in the illusion of I didn't do anything. It wasn't all me. And I'm not going to say who it was or who it wasn't. So I sat back and was like, you know what? If my part of the story is given to the jury, I'm out of here.
So, but you were aware of the conspiracy laws. I mean, even if you don't know this guy,
Well,
and you don't know what he's doing, you're still got a problem.
that's not made clear until they say guilty.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, you're like, conspiracy? I didn't conspire with anybody. But they're saying a conspiracy is just an agreement between 2 or more people. 2 or more people could be the next door neighbor, it could be your grocer, it could be the guy that pumps your gas, it could be any 2 or more people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of room to grab a lot of people.
So the trial ends, you're found guilty.
Yep.
Teddy Atkinson, rise. You're sentenced.
Yep.
I guess months later.
Yeah, months later.
You're out on bail, but
Mhm.
but now you got to come back for sentencing.
Right.
The judge gives you life,
20 to life.
which in feds is life.
You're done.
You told me a story about what it says on your jacket when you get life.
Yeah. Well, when someone used to get life, well, I don't know now,
Yeah.
but once upon a time it said deceased.
Yeah, date of exit.
Deceased.
Yeah.
Outdate, deceased. That's when you leave, when you're dead. So to see that as a young man, it just sends you.
How old are you at this time?
I'm approximately right about then. I'm about 27.
So you're 27. You get life in prison. They take you down to the big house,
Yes.
Lewisburg
Lewisburg.
Penitentiary.
First stop.
And I asked you this years ago.
Yeah.
How did it, like, you're there. You're in Lewisburg Penitentiary. I mean, it's storied. I mean, Goodfellas film.
Yeah,
there, all
everything.
the,
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on that first evening? You're there,
Mhm.
and it's over.
There's no time to think, Bob.
Yeah.
There's no time. The first thing, one of my trial co-defendants, he told me, he said, listen, when you go in there, just don't look nobody in the eye unless they're talking directly to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like the first lesson that I had in my head. So if someone's talking, mind your business.
Yeah.
Keep going. It doesn't concern you. You see somebody receiving like 2 knives in both sides of the neck, that's not your business.
Yeah.
Keep going. So the first day that I walked in, there's a smell inside of that building that just goes up into your brain. And if I was to try to get it out of my brain, you couldn't, because it smells like death. And if no one's ever smelled death, that's the place where it's at. I'm thinking, am I gonna die in here? Because I've heard all of the stories. So,
all right. Immediately, you get hooked up the way prisons go in what they call a car. And a car is just where you're from.
Correct.
And you get in that car. So
New York car, Jersey car, Boston car, California car. You're in that car.
So you're a New York car.
I'm a New York car.
And that provides some protection, but it also creates obligations.
Absolutely. Now, with that obligation, it also creates, who are you first? You got to tell me who you are. You got to be clear. It's like going through the airport. If you don't clear, you ain't flying. You know? Yeah.
So you went to trial. You're covered.
But in the U.S. penitentiary, that means nothing. You could have told and ratted right after trial. So they need to see your paperwork. Your paperwork is like your license plate or your driver's license. It says who you are, where you're from, and you're a good guy or a bad guy. If you're a bad guy, you go over there, you get ostracized, and they carry
your paperwork didn't come with you the first day, so somebody had to vouch for you.
No, this is what they do. You vouch for yourself saying, I'm going to go to my case manager. I have exactly 3 to 4 days tops to get my paperwork and present it to one of the so-called shot callers. That shot caller will look at that paperwork and give the heads up to everybody. He's good. And then you proceed.
All right. How many years are you at this penitentiary?
Approximately almost 3.
And you're seeing
everything.
Now, there was a woman, an attorney, who got involved in your case. Public defender, pro bono. She's doing it for free. And she just sees something in Teddy Atkinson that she wants to fight for.
She's a fighter.
And she starts. And she's fighting for you. And you go from life, and what was the first? You had an initial victory. Takes you down to how many years?
Takes me down to 30.
So you're 30 years, which is staggering. But you see a light at the end of the tunnel all of a sudden, where all you saw was tunnel. And just a while before.
And whatever light was coming, it was basically an oncoming train.
So that's penitentiary. You go next to Schuylkill?
I go to, Schuylkill.
Medium security?
No, I'm sorry. I go to FCI McKean.
Oh, McKean, out in Western PA.
Yeah.
You're there for how long?
I think I'm there for like almost 4 years.
And you got to do the same shakeout there.
Same thing. Everything's the same. Who are you? Where you're from? Another car.
Schuylkill. Which I was there.
Schuylkill.
I was in, by the way, Lewisburg Penitentiary twice. Fortunately, I was never a long-term guest, but
good for you.
I've heard that door slam behind me. But you're Schuylkill, and at what point do you win the next appeal to get a further reduction?
I was called to what they call the R&D. R&D is receiving and discharge. Right next to R&D is the mail room. The mail room, they'll call you down there when you receive some mail that you have to sign for. They call me down to the mail room. They say, well, first I go to R&D, because anytime someone's going to R&D, it's like a big thing on the compound. He's going to R&D. Why? Because you're either going back to court or
you're getting taken away.
You're getting taken away. You know. So they was like, no, you're not going to R&D. Go next door to the mailroom. So I go to the mailroom. They tell me we need some papers to be signed because your conspiracy dropped you 2 levels. And I'm like, what do you mean 2 levels? So as they're explaining to me, it sounds like mumbo jumbo because at the same time, I don't know the law. I'm still in the law library trying to figure out how did I get here. So they're telling me all these different things. So I'm looking. They give me the paper. I go back to my cell. And I talk to my cell buddy, and he tells me, he's like, yo, you got a reduction.
So now you're down to how many years? Because we're running low.
20.
But you end up serving 22. You end up at Fort Dix, which is a camp.
Correct.
So you've stayed clean in prison and all that. What part of the journey did you say, I'm going to become a personal trainer? I'm going to do something very different. I'm going to have a different life when I get out?
My family. My family stuck with me from day one. From the time They said guilty to the time they would visit me every single day, not every single day, but day in, day out on the visits when it was allowed. And I promised them, I said, I will definitely not be the same person if I ever get out of here. So I have to recreate myself. And in order to recreate myself, I have to educate myself. So I went straight into the books. So a lot of guys would, take care of me while I was in prison. They would send me different amounts of money. So instead of running to the store buying sneakers and wham-whams and zoom-zooms and all the different things that commissary sells, I was purchasing books. So I started with personal training books. I started with self-help books.
Nutritional books.
And anything that can help the body and the mind exist.
You come out after 22 years.
Yeah.
The world's changed.
What? Unbelievably, man. Let me tell you something. Phones were this big when I left. This big. You would hold a phone almost literally like this. And now they're this big.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You said you were going to do this.
Yes.
You established 2018
Yep.
a business. You do your time
Yep.
Out of prison in home confinement.
Yep.
And then you establish this personal trainer thing, and it takes off.
It blossoms. You know why? Because I had no other choice. Every other lifestyle that I was dealing with had an expiration date on it. There's no expiration date on health until you expire. But while you're here, you got to take care of yourself. And I've wanted to be involved in that because a friend of mine, he said, listen, this is what you like, this is what you love, do it.
And you're doing it.
And I'm doing it and loving it.
And it's working.
Yes.
And we see your posts on Instagram, and the Temple Gym loves you.
And I
down
love them
below
too.
Manhattan.
Yes.
An incredible journey. I wish we had more time
Yes.
on this program, but
Yes.
we may have to do this again.
We got to do it. We got to do it. Yes.
Teddy,
Thank you.
my pleasure,
Thank you,
shot.
Bob.
All right, man.
My man.
Your Sunday Brunch Power Player of the Week on the Bob Cordaro Show. Join us every week for the Sunday Brunch Power Player of the Week.
Well, that's the show for today. I loved it. My friend Teddy Atkinson, great to have him here. And hey, how about that COVID situation? It requires communication, but I loved having Teddy on, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing what he had to say, and that you did. Next week, we'll be back with you for another edition of the Bob Cordaro Show on TV here on WNEP, 11:30 a.m. every Sunday.
Thanks for being part of the program. You've got an appointment every Sunday morning at 11:30 right here on WNEP TV, the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.
They fought for us, now he'll fight for you. The pursuit of justice and liberty. It's the Bob Cordaro Show on TV.